Hello and welcome back to the Q&A. So as always, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can leave them down in the video description or on the channel's subreddit. Anyway, so let's get into the actual questions themselves. The first one is from Victor Lotz, who basically just asked, how long is it going to take to get from level 90 to 100? Will it be the same time as from 85 to 90, or will it be double? Well, no, is the answer. It's actually going to probably be in and around the amount of time it would take to get to level 85. At least that's what I would expect. Back in the day, at least with the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King expansions, you would go through 10 levels with every expansion, just like it's going to be for Warlords. And one of the great things about that is that it allowed things to feel a little bit faster, and I'm also pretty sure that there were more zones and I guess some more variety in terms of the choice of what zone you go to. In Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria, the scope of the zones was very different. You didn't have a great deal of choice, and you only really had a very condensed 5-level kind of thing. Well, the good news is that in Warlords they described it themselves as being a, and I quote, fun and fast-paced romp through zones. So that means it's going to be pretty fun, it's going to be quick, and we'll be hopping from zone to zone to zone in pretty good speed, actually. And hopefully there will be enough zones to sustain I'd say maybe 2-3 playthroughs of Draenor. I think that would be a very good way to do things. So overall, yeah, I do think it'll be roughly the same as level 85, however, it's going to feel a little bit faster and more interesting, varied, and just fun, because we're going to have more zones, you'll be leveling up more, in terms of the amount of dings you get per X, amount of time. I think one of the problems with having 5 massive levels is that, well, really when you're presented with, let's just say 84 to 85, and when you see that, and you just realize that it's going to take 10 hours to ding. No, that just drives people off the game. If you want some actual specific stats, one of the guys who was testing or playing the Warlords in a recent press event said that it took him 5 hours to finish Shadow Moon Valley, and that got him from level 85, no, not 85, level 90 to level 92, and he got to see the whole storyline. And obviously, since that was only his first time through on a new character that wasn't his, in reality it would probably be a little bit quicker than that. Still though, interesting stuff, and I'm glad that they've changed it to be that way. So the next question is from Andrew Lucidia, I think, and he said, what add-ons do you use for your hunter? I'm curious because I plan on boosting a hunter to 90 with my free boost. Okay, so, right, add-ons. I use OmniCC to display my cooldowns on my buttons. I use Bartender to make my UI. My UI is the way it is in that grid because it's basically designed to be used with a Razer Naga mouse. I use shadowed unit frames for my unit frames, tidy plates for my, thingies that hover over enemies' heads. There is something which makes debuff icons appear on the enemy health plates that just kind of float around on top of their head. I have no idea what that is, but maybe it's one of those things I talked about previously. Other things I use, Tell Me When is what I use to track the important cooldowns. I use SCADA as a damage meter, though Recount probably does the job just fine. I also use, and I don't use Deadly Boss Mods, I use the other one for boss mods, but DBM will still do the job. Still, that's basically the main kind of group of things that I use. And yeah, I mean, it serves me pretty well. I think I've got a nice UI going. It's really just all about having an easy access to information, and I try to keep the locations of all my buttons and bars near my character's feet, so I can always kind of see where I am within a boss fight, and I think that does help me out with not getting myself killed, and just general things like that. So yeah, I think that's basically everything with my UI, at least the combat stuff, and that's the important stuff. Okay, so the next question is from Kyle Ketterman, and he said, in vanilla, were ogres usually elite? I remember ogres in Alteric Valley, Stormguard, Northeast Elsmar, and Central Stranglethorn all being elite. Was this just because of their size compared to the player races? Do you think they could do this again in Warlords? I liked having challenges in more zones that required finding a small party. Well, honestly, I have no idea if ogres were elite during vanilla, because I didn't really play the game during vanilla. I started an early Burning Crusade. So, yeah, I can't really speak to that. I do know that when I did play in Burning Crusade, I noticed there was quite a few elite ogres, but there were still plenty of non-elites that were just involved in normal questing, like, say, in the Badlands, as one example, and a whole bunch of other places. So, yeah, they're not going to do this in Warlords of Draenor in terms of making all the Ogres elite, because honestly, Ogres are one of the main forces that we'll be fighting against, at least for Horde players, so to make them all elite would basically cut out a lot of solo content from a zone. Now, you did say that you liked the idea of there being more challenges in zones that required finding a small party. The good news is that, well, at least from what I can gather, there are going to be interesting world bosses, but from the general vibe Blizzard are given off, I think that there's definitely good room to do group quests and that kind of thing, and have rare bosses spawn in zones, Timeless Isle style, but actually make them a little bit harder so they require some strategy in a party. I think that would be the ideal way to do it, and I really hope they do. So, I can't confirm that that will happen, but I think it would definitely make sense, and just count it as a solid suggestion for Blizzard. Alright, so the next question is from Grafsby807, who says, after the Allies defeated Garrosh in the siege, when you speak to the king, he talks about the Alliance trying to cure the plague in Gilneas and keep Sylvanas in check. What are my thoughts on the future conflict there? Will the Allies try to retake Gilneas, etc., and will, say, the Argent Dawn or Crusade try to attack Sylvanas, etc., etc., etc. And then also, do I think the scenario for the Battle of the Undercity will ever be made or brought back into the game, because a lot of people didn't get to do it because they didn't play during Wrath of the Lich King. Okay, so this whole Sylvanas thing, she's probably one of the next characters that is going to snap or at least be involved in some big storyline. Perhaps Jaina, but we do have some direct foreshadowing of all that at the end of patch 5.4. When you talk to Lorthamar, he said that Vol'jin would be a great leader for the Horde, providing he can keep it in check, and when he said that, he glanced over at Sylvanas, meaning that she is one that people have their eyes on, and it's the same situation on the Alliance side. She's a bit of a loose cannon at the minute, with just kind of some very evil things going on. She has that Blight. She has the Valkyr helping her out, and it's in general not really too good if you are a living being on the planet. So, yeah, I think there could absolutely be some sort of war going on there. Is it going to fit into Warlords of Draenor? Nope. I'm not too sure how they would fit that into a storyline that would involve some of the major forces of the game, and I do feel like an entire expansion centered around Sylvanas could come off as being a little bit fillerish. So, not particularly sure how that would all play out. But at some point, the Alliance are probably going to try to take Gilneas, and since the Argent Dawn, Crusade, etc. are all in, well, they all kind of want Sylvanas dead, well, because of that, I think if that ever were to happen, that they would certainly try to help out. Then also about this idea of the Battle of the Undercity coming back, well, it was the kind of thing that made sense within this kind of in-zone storyline that was going on in Dragonblight, and it just wouldn't fit in the game anymore. There would be no story purpose. Of course, I think it would have made complete sense for them to just keep it in the first place. I'm pretty sure there was a reason why they removed it. But still, I don't think it was really something that was worthy of removing. In terms of bringing it back, though, I just don't think it's a good idea, because, I don't know, it doesn't seem to make too much sense to me. It's gone, really, and you can't Caverns of Time it, because that story, or at least the story of the events of the particular scenario, very much depended on the other things that you had done through questing, so I'm not really... yeah, I'm just not convinced they'd be able to pull it off. Okay, so our next question is from Ethan Hollis, who says, what do you think will be the endgame zone for Warlords of Draenor, like, say, the Vale? Well, I'm not actually sure. I guess Ashran is definitely going to be a max level zone. It'll be definitely, level 100 and that kind of thing. But as for a max level PvE zone, I'm not really too sure. Well, at least at launch anyway. What I do know is that they haven't revealed the old equivalent of Netherstorm, and that will probably be one of those giant big patch zones. So I think that will be a level 100 zone. But in terms of what we see at the minute, most of the zones, from what we've heard anyway, are basically questing, so it's really hard to say at this point. Once the beta opens up, then I'll be able to go in there, do some research, and find out the full answer to your question. Alright, so the next question is from Kyle Ketterman, and he said, are there any good resources for catching up on the story so far? I've been a Warcraft fan since Warcraft 2, and I've played WoW till the end of Wrath, when the story arc from the strategy games ended quite nicely. I've kicked in around Cataclysm, so I didn't feel compelled by the story of Cataclysm or Mists of Pandaria, so I basically just leveled my main and did not do much else. I'm getting interested again with Warlords, but I want a good resource to catch up on what is going on. Okay, so first of all, I think, as you identified correctly, my lore videos are not the right place, because they're more just taking a character and looking through. But in terms of an overall general thing, hard to say. Right, so I'll do a quick recap. In Cataclysm, Deathwing returned, basically. He tried to break the world, etc., and the dragon aspects gave up a lot of their power in combination with the Earthen Ring, Thrall, etc., and we were all able to kill Deathwing. And then after that, Pandaria basically popped out of nowhere in terms of the actual sort of day-to-day, month-to-month lore of World of Warcraft, the actual in-game story. Mists really was just randomly came upon it, it seems. I mean, okay, the Cataclysm and a few other things maybe sort of drew back the Mists, but whatever. So, yeah, then Mists of Pandaria happens, we players unleash the Shah, then Garrosh starts going on his crazy power bender, so he tried to wield the Shah as a weapon, he did, and eventually we kill him for it, and we, you know, we don't kill him, we defeat him. The Horde rebels, the Horde then restores its kind of honor, and now we are left at the point, basically, there is no main threat in Azeroth at the minute. The Alliance and Horde are fine, just as the Horde needs to stabilize and grow a little bit. That is like an ultra quick and not extremely detailed recap of what's happened, but personally I don't think the stories of Cataclysm or Mists of Pandaria were very compelling, and I completely agree with you. Well, in the, the fact that I didn't feel compelled by them. I just don't think they were that well written or really communicated in game, but that's probably a debate for another day. As for your question in specific though, what are good resources? Well, WoPedia is a good wiki in general, so you could have a look there. It's kind of weird with lore. You should probably, if you're into reading books, or audiobooks actually, then there's the Cataclysm book, it's called The Shattering, and the Mists of Pandaria one, it's called Tides of War, the Jaina Proudmoore one. And then War Crimes is going to be the Warlords of Draenor one. If you read the three of those books in combination with a quick brush up on the lore of each expansion, then that should tide you in very nicely into Warlords of Draenor. Okay, so we'll take one more question. This one is from Akiras Gaming, who said, will racial mounts be revamped in terms of graphics? So we actually recently had a developer talk about this, and he said that honestly they do want to upgrade everything in the game, but right now the main focus is player models, though they are definitely considering doing racial mounts in the future. I think that's a fair enough response. What matters the most to me is the actual races themselves. But yes, I agree with you. The racial mounts, they're a little bit low polygon, and it would be very nice to see them get the sort of revamped treatment. I mean, if you compare, say, the Golden Griffin that you get from patch 5.1 to the original Griffins in the Burning Crusade or in just an original WoW, they look far better, so it would be nice to see a more modern take on those classic mounts. Anyway, that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave your questions in the description. The comments. I'm actually basically out of questions now, so it'd be sort of handy if you did have any. And yeah, I'll see you next time.